Okay, so here's the deal. Last time I had the GL out, I noticed that I had some play in the front fork. So I said, well, I should probably take a look at that because it does get a little bouncy sometimes, even if the motor is currently really not making me happy. I don't know if you can really see it right there, but it's got a decent amount of play. So this could be something simple, like the uh, column nut up here at the top getting a little bit loose, which wouldn't be all that interesting. But I got another problem, and this had been kind of there for a while, and I'd been ignoring it, and it's gone to the next level. So I got something going on involving my steering stop. Now, if the fork's just falling down and it's not making contact, that could be pretty easy. But more likely is that the stop is going to be bent. And so first thing I'm going to do is figure out if my column nut is loose, what's going on. More likely, I expect what's going to happen is I'm going to need to drop the fork out and sort out the fork stop up inside the horn cast here. And you really, I think it may be truly the only way to do that is with the fork out of the bike. So just get the headset loose, see what's going on up there, and depending on where it goes, nuts will come off, front brake cable will get disconnected and go away. If I had a Speedo cable on here, that would need to get dealt with as well up at the top. Since I don't, that's one less thing to do. So it's not going to be a hard project, but it's one of those projects where you're just like, really? Really? So I guess time to get started. So like I said, not hard to do, still kind of a pain. 14 millimeter bolt right here. And, oh, that probably works better if I show it. There we are. And then there's a square captive nut up at the front, which, let me see. We'll see, it's gonna fall out. But, and then we'll wind up having to take the headlight off in order to get a look at it. Here, let me do that. I'll just go ahead and open this up and we'll take a look real quick. So we can see up in here, this is the front of that bolt. Here's this nut. It's kind of semi-captive. And what'll happen is that it'll drop out the bottom right here. So, or I guess that's how you sort of insert it as well. And so, yeah, so the headlight off makes it really easy to deal with. You can do it with the headlight on. I certainly have. It's kind of a pain as compared. So I don't know the exact torque spec for this off the top of my head, but it's a lot. And I'm holding this nut in place while I unscrew just because it makes it less likely I'll have to chase it across the workshop floor. It's out. This guy, and we can see he just falls right out. Put it back on here so I don't lose it. And so now my headset's loose on the fork tube. We can kind of work it up. So I'm just holding the fork steady with my leg. Kind of lift this guy off. Get off of there. Okay, and I'm off. So here we are. You can see here's my nuts. This first one actually tightens and sets the tension. Then you have a lock washer here that slots in, so it holds in place, and then this one sits on top to tighten it down. But I seem to have like no play on these. So what I'll do is I'm gonna, see, so I can have my play, but none of it seems to be vertical. So I got problems, which means what I thought, which is forks coming out. Let's see. Can you tell? I don't know if... So here's this guy. I'm gonna take the inner out. loose. Should be an 11. Yes. Again, since the cable's threaded through the bolt, you don't really need anything on the back to get it loose. Now, I can pull this guy out, and then what I'm going to do is, see, I can now leave the inner in place. Well, I'll have to push it back through and down, but I can drop the fork without having to get like really medieval on cables or wire or anything else. Here's my my fork nut tool. It came all the way around. I cut a slot in it, which allows me to get around any cables that might be in the way here. So, for example, my brake inner, not a problem today, obviously, but so you can see this just goes on, and it's gonna get this guy loose. This is also where you can see the screwdriver method a little bit better. Get it into these slots, and just kind of tap like so. Here's the first one. Here's this washer. And you can see it's got that notch in it. So that sits into the groove, a groove that's in the fork itself. So this can't rotate, which means that it holds this lower nut in place. And then we have our lower nut. And the same thing. Support this, and you can see here this lower one has a groove in it to support those bearings. He's looking a little tired. Take a better look at that and get it all cleaned up. And this just drops out. And that's it. There we go. This looks not so good. Well, at one time this was a caged bearing. Now not so much. So let's get these back. Just because a bunch of ball bearings roaming around the workshop floor is not really what you want, and they're all greasy. So anyway, so definitely a new lower bearing. And then we'll take a look at this race. I think this is new from when I rebuilt it. It looks okay. I guess let's go see what's going on inside the horn cast. Okay, so my fork stops don't look terrible. They're here and over here. However, this lower race is thrashed. I should have replaced this when I painted the bike. Since I didn't, I guess I can do that now. So I'll just pop this out from above. I dug around and I figured out that I have a new unused lower bearing set. I have my existing upper bearing set, which actually is in decent shape, so it can be reused. And then I have new lower and upper races that I bought for this and never installed. So I got really no excuse. So let's take a quick moment, talk about how the bearings go on, because there is an up and a down. And then I guess I can knock them out and get this show back on the road. So here's our lower bearing race. It's over the dust cover. That's on there tight. I get it on there as tight as you can, and then if you need to, you can use a slide hammer, or when you pull the whole fork back up into the bike, you can kind of draw it in. You see, here's my upper race. And so what's going to happen is that he's going to sit on here. So he rides, and there's the bearings doing the work right there. And then you come down on this side, and so you want the ring to be down. And so again, see, these guys are now riding on it. So when this comes down, it locks into place. The bearings are being retained by the outer lip here and then pushed in there. And so we have this guy, and he's happy as can be. So let me get this old one knocked out, and we'll put this guy in and put it all back together, and should be problem solved, staying solved. So this is my race removal tool. Let's see if it'll focus on that. It's just a piece of 1/2-inch rod with a little kind of C-shaped bit welded onto the end and ground down so it'll fit. It's going to go down the fork tube from the top through the horn cast, and then we'll just punch it out. There is nothing interesting or fancy about this. There it is. So if you look up in here, he's now seated up on the top of the race on either side there. And so when I tap it, this whole thing's just going to fall right out. Now you can see we have where the race would be, so we'll get that cleaned up and then we can draw it back in. Okay, so now we're going to come back the other way, and you'll just come on, get in there. There it is. And so if you look, I don't know if you can see, it's just right there. You do the same basic thing, just lift it up. Lift off. First one here, this actually doesn't really need to be cleaned up. So we can get him started. Okay, so this is a bearing punch, but it'll do the job to get this going. Looks like that's pretty well in there. Now we'll do our bottom. And again, we're going to put our cage lip down because these bearings will sit around here. So this lip is actually like right on the outside edge here. So you see how he floats on there, nice and smooth. What I've done here is I've got my bearing on, and you can see, so my rollers are up, my cage is down. Now, this doesn't really have nearly as obvious an alignment, but and then I'm just going to put this in place right here. So now what'll happen is when I bring the fork up, it'll catch these, and then I don't have to like fumble with trying to get these onto the fork while I'm holding it and pushing this whole thing together. Fork's just heavy enough, you don't really want to mess with it. My bearing and my collar got caught up there just like I wanted them to. Through. Now I can just start him. It's on there, so even if this kind of slips, it's not going to go crashing to the floor, which is what you want to avoid. Okay, so you're probably thinking, well, that was a sudden end, and you were correct. It was a sudden end because, well, camera issues. But anyway, the repair is complete. One or two final notes on it is, so when I went to get it all back together, what I found was that I didn't get the new races pressed in quite enough. They were short like a millimeter. And so the headset didn't want to go back on, the bolt wouldn't come back through. So if you run into that when you're doing this, I was able to fix it by simply cranking down on the fork nut and actually drawing everything up that much tighter that way. And then bolt went in just fine, and have had it out. It's so much better with the fork actually being held tightly in place. Really starting to like this bike again, and looking forward to seeing what I can do with it next.